The morning sun filtered through the bamboo curtain, painting the small room in a golden hue. Yet for Dee, that light felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. He sat by the wooden table, his rough hands unfolding a shirt, buttoning it slowly, as though each button might hold his courage together. His eyes, still clouded from a sleepless night, betrayed the storm that words could not. Behind him, Huyen stood silently, her gaze fixed on the man who carried more than just his own burden. She stepped closer, placed her hand gently on his shoulder, and whispered, "You are not alone. Whatever happens, you still have a home to return to." Her voice was calm, but inside her chest, her heart trembled with dread. On the tiled floor, little Maya spread her drawing papers, her laughter echoing like a bell in the still air. She held up her backpack and chirped, "Uncle D, I will draw many flowers today to bring you luck." Her innocent words slipped into the cracks of Dee's weary soul like cool water on scorched earth. He bent down, hugged her small frame tightly, and for a fleeting moment, he remembered why he must endure. Yet silence soon returned, thicker than the morning heat. Beyond the yard, cicadas cried out as if warning of unseen battles. For Dee, the path ahead was not just a walk to the courthouse. It was a march toward the unknown. Behind him stood Huyen and Maya, fragile yet unwavering. Before him loomed the trial, the house, the past, and the question that haunted him most: was this house merely an asset in the eyes of the law? Or was it the memory of every sacrifice, every brick, every dream he had poured into it? Taking a deep breath, Dee stepped out into the glaring sunlight. The gate creaked shut behind him, and with it, the fragile peace of the morning seemed to vanish. The road stretched long and dusty, leading not only to the courthouse but to the truth he could no longer avoid. As the dust of the road swallowed Dee's figure, the house fell into a silence that weighed heavily on Huyen's heart. She sat beside Maya, her hand gently smoothing the child's hair, but her eyes were distant, lost in a tide of memories she had tried so hard to bury. The laughter of cicadas outside only seemed to sharpen the echo of the past. She remembered the nights when her ex-husband Tuan's eyes burned with anger, his voice like thunder shaking the fragile walls of their home. She remembered the cruel words of her mother-in-law, each syllable like a knife, cutting deeper than silence ever could. Those days had wrapped her in darkness so thick she feared she might never see light again. Now, even in this modest house filled with warmth and fragile hope, the shadows of those memories crept in. What if Tuan returned? What if he discovered that Maya was still here? Would he try to shatter this new life she had built with trembling hands? Huyen's chest tightened as if invisible chains were pulling her back into that abyss. Maya, unaware of the storm inside her mother, colored flowers across the paper, humming a childish tune. Her innocence was both a blessing and a sharp reminder Huyen could not, must not, allow the past to touch her daughter again. Yet her thoughts were haunted by another silence, the silence of Dee's ex-wife. She had not appeared, not even once, but absence could be as dangerous as presence. Was she quietly preparing a plan, waiting for the right moment to strike? Huyen drew Maya into her arms, holding her close. The little girl looked up, her eyes shining with pure trust. "Mom," she asked softly, "Uncle D will come back to us, right?" Huyen smiled, but her lips trembled. "Of course, my love. He will return." But deep inside, a fragile question lingered: what if fate had decided otherwise? The courthouse loomed tall, its white walls stark against the burning afternoon sun. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with the unspoken tension of broken promises and unfinished wars. Dee sat on one side of the wooden bench, his fingers clasped tightly, knuckles pale. His heart pounded like a war drum, but his face remained rigid, determined not to reveal the storm within. Across from him sat his ex-wife. Her eyes were sharp, cold, glittering with the confidence of someone who believed victory was already in her hands. The faint curl of her lips seemed to mock him, as though the years they had shared were nothing more than dust. The judge entered, and the gavel struck the wood with a sharp crack. This session will now address the division of property following the divorce. Both sides are asked to remain calm and speak clearly. The lawyer for Dee's ex-wife stood tall, his voice smooth, cutting the silence. My client requests full ownership of the marital home, along with the majority of the assets. She carried the burden of this marriage for years, and it is only right that she receives what she deserves. Each word landed on Dee like a stone. That house, every brick, every wall was not just property. It was his sweat, his sacrifice, the silent witness of nights he worked until dawn, the place he dreamed would shelter his family. And now, the woman who had abandoned him stood there, demanding it all with chilling indifference. Dee rose slowly, his voice firm though his hands trembled. Your Honor, this house is not only an asset, it is where I have poured every drop of effort, where I built not just walls but a home. Taking it away is not just stripping me of property, it is taking away the foundation of my life. For a moment, silence filled the room. The judge studied him with a measured gaze. His ex-wife smirked, her voice slicing through the stillness. Well said. But without me, would you have reached this far? That house belongs to me as much as it does to you, and I will reclaim what is mine. The gavel struck again, echoing like thunder. The trial was far from over, but the battlefield had already been drawn. Dee clenched his fists beneath the table, the words of his ex-wife burning into his chest. He knew what was at stake. If he lost this house, he would not just lose a roof, it could mean losing the only safe place for Huyen and little Maya. The air grew heavier, each second stretching like an eternity. Dee's jaw tightened. No matter the cost, he could not allow his ex-wife's claim to erase the life he was struggling to rebuild. The sound of the gavel still echoed in Dee's mind as he stepped out of the courtroom. The hallway stretched long and cold, its tiled floor reflecting the harsh light. His shoulders felt heavy, as though he were carrying a mountain on his back. He paused, trying to take a deep breath, to steady the storm inside. Then came the familiar sound of footsteps. Sharp, deliberate. He turned, and there she was, his ex-wife. Her face held no softness, only pride and disdain. She stopped in front of him, her eyes narrowing like blades. How pathetic you are, Dee, she said, her voice low but sharp as steel. That house will never be yours. Don't dream of keeping it. Dee clenched his fists but stayed silent, his jaw tightening. She stepped closer, her words dripping venom. And that child, Maya, do you really think she belongs to you? She is not your blood. Having a man like you around only makes you look like a fraud. The words struck like daggers. Dee felt his chest tighten, but he did not flinch. His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of unshakable truth. Maya doesn't need blood to know who her family is. I love her, I protect her, and I will never allow anyone, not even you, to harm her. His ex-wife let out a cold, mocking laugh. A man with nothing, clinging to a child that isn't even his. You will lose it all, even that tiny illusion you call a home. Dee's eyes darkened, but in them burned a fire she had never seen before. He lifted his head, his voice steady, cutting through the air like a blade. Illusion is not faith, and faith can never be taken away. For the first time, his ex-wife faltered, her smirk fading for just a heartbeat. But then she turned sharply, her heels clicking against the floor, leaving only the echo of her contempt behind. Dee stood alone in the hallway, sweat beading on his forehead, but his heart blazed with determination. No matter what the law decided, no matter what threats lay ahead, he would protect Huyen and Maya. Far away, in the small house, Huyen squeezed Maya's hand, staring out at the crimson sunset. A shadow of unease lingered in her heart, whispering of storms yet to come. Was the threat only empty words, or was a darker plan already unfolding in silence? The answer remained hidden, as the cicadas screamed into the falling night, an omen of battles still to be fought, and of fragile love standing against the storm. This story reminds us that a house is never just walls and a roof. It holds the weight of memory, sacrifice, and love. For Dee, the house represented more than property. It was the fragile foundation where he hoped to rebuild life with Huyen and Maya. Yet, when faced with the coldness of his ex-wife and the threats of losing everything, he showed that what truly makes a home is not ownership on paper, but faith, devotion, and the courage to protect those we love. Huyen's fears and Maya's innocence remind us of the vulnerability of peace, how fragile happiness can be when shadows of the past return. But they also teach us that family is not defined by blood or law. It is defined by the hands that hold us, the voices that comfort us, and the strength that shields us in our weakest moments. In life, storms will come, legal battles, betrayals, and painful memories. But love that is grounded in sincerity and sacrifice can withstand even the fiercest challenges. A true home is not something others can take away, because it lives in the heart, unshakable and enduring. We often mistake possessions for security, believing that ownership will protect us from loss. Yet this story shows the truth. A house can be taken, money can be divided, but the essence of love, trust, and faith cannot be claimed by anyone else. Dee's unwavering stand proves that even when stripped of material things, dignity and devotion remain unshaken. Huyen's quiet resilience teaches us another truth, that healing is never instant. The past may still cast its shadow, and fear may whisper that happiness is too fragile to last. But with every step forward, with every embrace of Maya's innocence, she learns that courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to keep protecting what matters most, even when fear is present. And Maya, through her laughter, her simple gift of flowers, becomes the silent teacher. She reminds us that joy does not come from possessions or victory in court, but from the bonds we nurture day by day. Her innocence reflects the essence of hope, that love is enough to turn even the darkest days into light.
The lesson is clear. What defines us is not what we own, but what we choose to protect, who we choose to love, and how we choose to endure when trials test the very core of who we are.